Hello, and welcome to another episode of Creating Cultures That Outperform. Hard to believe, but this is episode 25 of Jerks at Work, the Status Quo Defender. Iconic in many ways. The world has been going through so much change, and they hate it, and everybody can see them. They just stick right out. So we're going to go into who they are and how to spot them, what to do about them. Um, they love protecting the status quo. That's who they are. It kind of defines them. They know everything about the status quo and they're very comfortable defending it. And if the world changes, maybe they're not going to be as relevant. And so they say, wow, we've always done it this way. That's not how we do things here. Nope, tried it before. It's not going to work. Boy, don't try selling that to leadership. That'll be a disaster. And so, they want to just delay. And that's what they do.
Yeah, they're the protector of the way it's always been.
Yeah,
They're definitely that person that's trying to keep things the same. They don't want to fix any, if they say if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Like that's their motto and their theme cry. Like they just really don't want change at all. They really want to keep things the way that they are. They feel comfortable there. They know things. So they don't want to have to learn something new and change. And so they will fight you at every step because they don't want things to change. They don't want to have to learn something new. They like their comfy couch. I love that little symbol over to the right, their comfy couch. That's really what they love. They just love being there, knowing what's going to happen next. They don't want anything to be unpredictable. They don't want to have to learn something new or go in a different direction. So they really just want things to be the same all the time.
Yeah, they confuse the status quo with relevance, and they could stay relevant. They're just going to have to change with the times. And the reality is they love to protect what's there. And so, of course, they challenge any new idea. They create barriers to innovation. They overemphasize the risks of what's going to happen. And they love conformity. Absolutely, without doubt. And the impact on the team, of course, I think is pretty straightforward. Everything stays the same. No innovation, no growth. People get really bored that they aren't growing. The culture suffers. It's all kinds of problems. What have you seen with these folks, Tex? I've worked with a number.
Yeah, this person really, they cause growth to suffer because they don't want you to change. So they're the ones holding opportunities back or causing you to miss those opportunities, which in turn allows your competitors to just blow right past you. Your growth and innovation is going to really suffer when you allow people to stifle new ideas and they just kind of cause creativity to continuously decline. The employees stop making suggestions. When that happens, it's because somebody is quashing all the ideas. They are just literally stomping them down so that people won't feel like they can make new suggestions. They won't feel like they can be innovative because they're not being rewarded for that innovation. So ultimately, engagement kind of suffers because people get frustrated with that. The people that really like change and like to do things out of the box thinkers, they're all going to leave because they're going to be so disengaged that they don't want to be there. They're frustrated from all of this stifling. And then ultimately the culture takes a hit because this person doesn't want to fail. So they're trying to keep things at the status quo, but the status quo inevitably will fail. So after a while, the innovation that you've made to maintain the status quo becomes yesterday, and the new innovators are able to just innovate right past you.
Yeah, I love this protecting yesterday from tomorrow because that's how they remain relevant, right? I am tied to this old world and I'm going to keep it here and I'm going to be as important tomorrow as I am today.
Yeah, when you stop experimenting, you're not able to find out what works better. So don't stop at good for the sake of just not being or because you're afraid. You want to go on to what's better and ultimately to what's best. So you want to constantly stay in that round where you're growing and increasing your experience. Yeah, I can't talk today. Experimentation, so that you're able to stay ahead of the curve and not constantly be the lagger. You want to be able to be out in the front leading the way. And you can't do that if you're allowing the status quo defender to just kind of sit there and sit there and be the gatekeeper, be the person that kind of squashes down all the creativity and ideas in the organization. You have to have somebody that is innovative and out of the box thinking, leading the charge. And so you got to
Well,
get this status quo guy out of the way.
yeah, and there's so many problems that underlie the lack of innovation in companies. We did an 18 episode series on the human factors of innovation, and anybody can innovate. You should look up that series if you want to innovate. These are people in the way, but there's so many things in the way of innovation in companies. And that series is a great one because nobody understands how to drive human innovation. They just don't. And so, listen, the real issue is, there's that fear of failure and fear of becoming irrelevant, these people, and they will stand in the way of it. And they end up increasing the tech debt of the company. You fall further behind. You have all these systems that have been updated, and the cost of change becomes overwhelming for the companies that don't do it and the ones that really do fail to innovate. And I think the truth is people don't resist change. They resist uncertainty. They're worried if they're going to actually be one of the, if they're going to be damaged in the process, right, or made obsolete. And so it's a real problem. This guy up at the board, I've seen him. I've worked with these people. They always have a reason why you can't do it. And they try to stir up some fear and drum up fear about doing things, and the real thing is they're losing influence, right? And that's what's going on in my experience.
Yeah. The very thing that they're afraid of, the failure, the criticism, losing influence, all
Yep.
these things that they're afraid of are actually happening because of their behavior, right? So they think if we just keep things the same, then I don't have to worry about failing. But you're going to fail if you keep things the same. If you keep things the same, then people are going to criticize. They're going to lose influence, or you're going to lose influence because you're keeping things the same. So the very thing that they're trying to hold on to so tightly is the very thing that's going to be their downfall. Because over time, you're going to fall behind if you don't continue to change, if you don't continue to innovate. You're going to cost the company more money by staying at the status quo. The way things are changing now, you really cannot afford to have a person that's a status quo defender because,
Yeah.
just with AI changes alone,
Yep.
things are moving too quickly for you to have a person that doesn't want to change on your team. You cannot allow them to have the voice in the room that discourages everybody else. You really do need somebody that can put that to the side and take some calculated risks. So you don't want to just be risky and go out there and do all kinds of things. You really want to have calculated risks, but you cannot have people that are risk averse leading the charge.
It's never going to work. The reality is, I remember working with this one guy, brilliant, and was the architect on this major system, knew everything about it. But boy, anytime they wanted to re-engineer and redo things, he was in the way of it totally and had 12 reasons why, because he was very bright. And he really did hold things up. And so what do you do about these folks? You've got to go down to what the business problem is, what's happening in the market, how things are evolving. You've got to really get to the fact that there is data and there's new things happening in the market that are going to cause you as a company to start to lose business and be obsolete. Maybe you reduce perceived risks so that they feel a little more comfortable. And if you're in a company that's constantly firing people as things change, of course, everybody's going to resist change. And so cultures themselves get in the way and cause some of these people to behave even worse. I think you've got to show that there's something in it for them, involve them in the solution. If they have a lot of institutional knowledge, they could certainly carry that into the kind of the re-engineered world that they're heading into. But these are the things you've got to bring up. You got to make it very feasible and beneficial for them to actually go along with the change.
Yeah. And you absolutely do not want to do these things, and that's dismiss them. You don't want to dismiss their concerns because it just causes them to dig their heels in even more. They want to know that their voice has been heard. And so you want to affirm that you've heard them, but you cannot just allow it to stay there at the status quo.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to attack those existing processes and force them to change. They're not going to change. If you try to force it, it's not going to happen. You really do have to guide them towards seeing the light, right? So you want them to see that this change is not as complicated as they think it is. It's usually not even as complicated and as risky as it is to stay where they are. So you have to guide them and coach them along. Don't assume that they're incompetent. Sometimes the person is just change averse. They're,
They're super competent in many cases.
yeah, they're, it's not a matter of competence. It's a matter of security and safety. And so you have to help them see that there's security and safety in the change. You don't want to overwhelm them with too much change or information at once. You want to take them step by step, giving them a slow move, but you do want them to move. So you do have to take some time with them and coach them along the way and show them that innovation is not nearly as threatening and as complex or unachievable as they think it is. Because you don't want to just win the argument with them. You really do want to gain their support.
Yeah, but you don't want to waste so much time gaining their support. You want to win them over, but eventually the bus has to pull out of the station, and they might be
That's
left.
right.
And I've seen that people left behind, and then they
Yeah.
really do become irrelevant, and they're out because they
Yeah.
got in the way of change, and they didn't actually try to help progress the company. Collateral damage, they slow progress. Obviously, they drain the energy of the place away. People become disengaged. High perform. Many reasons high performers lose interest. This is certainly one of them. They want to be part of the future. They want to go somewhere. They want to be somebody. And so these folks are really in the way, and they do cause a lot of damage if you allow them to rule the day, no doubt.
Yeah. Outdated habits create blind spots and prevent innovation. We could do a whole show on blind spots that people have
Yeah.
when
Oh
it
my
comes
God.
to just interacting with other people. So culturally, there are some blind spots. There are blind spots related to just the way we were raised and, the people that we spend time with. You just kind of ultimately develop these blind spots and you don't know it's there. And so your habits are reinforcing those blind spots without you even realizing it. It's not until you pay attention to it that you can actually change. So this status quo person is just, they've got a lot of outdated habits and they like it that way. They don't want it to change. They don't want anything to change. So you've really got to address those outdated habits and help coach them into a better space. And like Frank said, sometimes you just can't coach them there. They don't want to change. And ultimately they end up leaving the company. But you want to do that, you know, try to get them on a healthier path before the culture gets weak. Because we all know that culture is at the foundation. That culture has to be strong in order for the company to thrive. And once the culture starts getting holes in it and starts to deteriorate because of these, jerks that we see at work,
Yeah.
it
So many.
really causes the company to start that spiral down. You don't want to do that. You want to keep the growth and productivity high. You want people to feel safe in the organization so that the culture is strong enough to handle if you do take a risk and it doesn't work, your culture can handle that.
Yeah. I
But
mean, truly
try.
innovative culture,
What if it actually works? But you'll
yeah.
never know if you don't try.
Innovative cultures, they just have a different energy to them. People feel
Yeah.
good about change. They're motivated. People are talking about ideas. Ideas are welcome. Failures accepted. All of those things we've done so many shows on are a big piece of this. And every company has status quo defenders who want to maintain the relevance by maintaining the status quo. And that just can't be allowed. You've got to move on. And so next week, the firefighter, the person who always wants to be fighting a fire. This is going to be a good episode. Work with a few of these people too over time. So I hope you could join us. We're here every Wednesday at 3 o'clock Eastern time, and it's going to be another great show. So hope to see you there.
Yes.